So my name is Amanda Sue Piltz. I'm the Director of Technology here at SAAR, and today we're going to be talking about your paperless office. So the first thing we need to talk about is getting ready to be paperless, or what tools and what technology you need to be able to make that switch to be paperless. So having a paperless office or operating your real estate business paperlessly is made possible with the cloud. The cloud is a pretty hot topic that everybody's heard about recently. Basically what the cloud is just a metaphor for the internet. So basically when somebody's saying, oh, I'm using the cloud or I'm storing things in the cloud, they basically mean I'm accessing those things over the internet. So it's not tied to a physical device or a physical location. It's accessible anywhere that you have internet connection. So every single thing that I'm going to talk about today involves the cloud, involves using the internet to make sure that all your data is synced. That's one of the biggest advantages of being paperless is that you don't have to have your trunk full of a bunch of blank contracts. You don't have to have all of your sticky notes with you at all times. You can access all of your information, access everything that you need to run your business, no matter where you are, even if you're in a different country, as long as you have access to the internet. So let's talk about some of the tools that you're going to need to start this journey to become paperless. So the first is Dropbox. Hopefully you all have heard about Dropbox, and hopefully most of you have it and are a little familiar with how it works. What Dropbox is basically a storage system on the cloud. So just like if you go to your My Documents folder on your computer, and then in your My Documents folder you might have other folders related to different transactions, or you might have a personal folder. It's basically taking that file structure and all of that you already do on your computer, and it's putting it in the cloud. So whether you're on the computer you're on right now, whether you're in the library at a computer, whether you're on your iPad, whether you're on someone else's laptop, no matter where you are, you can access that file structure and all the files within that file directory. So if you go to Dropbox.com, you can sign up for a free account up to, I believe it's 5 gigs. That will handle most of what you need to get you started. That'll probably handle all of your current transactions for the next 6 months or so. 5 gigs is actually quite a bit of space. And what you're going to want to do is not just go to Dropbox.com to access all these files. You're actually going to want to download Dropbox. So whether you're on your desktop computer at home, whether you're on your laptop, whether you're on your iPad or your iPhone, or your computer at the office, you'll want to make sure that you download Dropbox. This is just going to make it easier to use. You really get the full functionality of it having it downloaded. So make sure on all your devices and your computer especially that you download the Dropbox application or the Dropbox software, either from the App Store or from Dropbox.com. Sign in all with the same account, same username and password on all of these devices, and that'll help get you started. So the second tool you need is Google. I just put the Google icon here because there's a lot of apps that are within Google. So Google isn't just a search engine. There's basically a whole suite. If you think about Microsoft Office, it's a suite of different tools. It has Word, it has Excel, it has PowerPoint, it has Access, it has Outlook. Google is basically like that. It's a suite of tools. So you have the Google that you know where you type in search queries, but you also have Gmail, which is an email client. You also have a calendar. You also have YouTube. You also have file storage. You also have file creation, Word document creation, Excel spreadsheet creation. There's a lot of things that you can do with Google, and it's really just going to make your life easier. Basically, the entire Google platform lives on the cloud. It's all internet-based, so you can access it from anywhere, and they have a lot of great apps as well. So what I would encourage everybody to do is to get a Google account. Now, just because you have a Google account doesn't mean that you have to have or use a gmail.com email address. If you have your own domain name that you use for your website that you also use for your email address, you can use that with Google. Really transferring over to Gmail, just that alone, just transferring over your email from whatever you're using now, Outlook, whatever it may be, transferring that over to Gmail, over to the Google platform, is one thing that's going to save you a huge amount of time and save you from tons and tons of headaches. But then combine that with the other great possibilities that you can have with Google, and it'll really make your life a lot easier. So to get an account, you just go to google.com. In the top right, I think there's a gear icon, and you click on that and say create an account. And you can use, again, you can use your existing email address and create your Google account. It doesn't move your email address. It doesn't do anything to your email unless you tell it to. So go ahead and get a Google account, and I'll go through today and talk about some of the things that you can do once you have a Google account. And if you're interested in moving your email over to Google or to Gmail, which again absolutely isn't necessary, but it can save you a lot of headaches. So if you're interested in doing that, please come see me on Friday, and I can actually walk you through your different options to get your email over to Gmail. So the third thing you need in order to be paperless is some sort of way to bridge the gap between traditional faxing and electronic faxing, or between PDFs. So typically, if you have a fax machine sitting at your office and somebody sends you a fax, that prints out on paper. So you're obviously not being paperless if you have a traditional fax machine. So that's why something like Impact Fax or eFax is so important. For some of you, your companies may offer something like this. For those of you that don't, we have a very, very good deal with a company called Impact Fax. We've heard great feedback. We've been using them for, I believe, since March. So we've been using them for a few months now. I've had great feedback from everybody. The cost is just $30, and it's unlimited sent and received faxes for an entire year. So I think that's a really great deal. So if you're interested in that, you can sign up for that on our website. You get your own fax number. And so what one of your clients will do, or typically people use this a lot with their title companies, because a lot of title companies still require fax. So what you'll do is your client will be at their fax machine. They have their printed paper copies. They put it in the fax machine, and they type in your phone number, and then they hit send. And when they hit send, instead of coming to another fax machine and printing out, it actually sends that fax document as a PDF attachment to your email. So even if you're in Jamaica on the beach on vacation, you can still get that document without your client having to do anything different. They can fax it just like they're used to, but you receive it as a email attachment. And it goes the other way too, which is something that a lot of, if anybody had used MongoFax, which closed down, if you ever used that, you could do that same thing with MongoFax, but you couldn't send anything. So you couldn't have a PDF document on your computer and send it to a traditional fax machine. But with Impact Fax, you can do that. So this really enables you to be paperless, even if your clients aren't, which is really important, because we want to make sure that we're not ahead of where our clients are, and we're not forcing our clients to do things that they're not comfortable with. But it's also great to use technology in your own workflow and in managing your transactions, because then you can be paperless and you can cut costs and cut time for yourself and still serve your clients. So this is a really important tool. And again, if you want to take advantage of the $30 per year unlimited faxing, electronic faxing, that's on our website, SAARonline.com, where you can get to that. So the next thing you need is a way to get signatures without printing, faxing, signing, scanning, emailing. And so a great example of how to get signatures is eSign. This is a completely free product from your state association, the Arizona Association of Realtors. This is also the same thing, not the same thing, it's a different company, but a similar product to DocuSign. So DocuSign is a little bit more of a household name. So if you're familiar with DocuSign, that's exactly what eSign is, except eSign's free. So what this allows you to do is, without having to fax something, though of course it is an option with Impact Fax in step 3, but without having to fax something, just using email and never having to print, you'll be able to send a document from your computer to your client's email, and without having to print it, they can just click on a link in that email, confirm that they are who they say they are, and then they can go through and sign the document and initial it and date it and everything that they need to do to that contract. So I'm going to show you a little bit of how to use eSign. I have a class coming up. My last webinar for the summer is July 30th, and that's going to be on ZipForm and eSign. And I'm going to really show you step by step how to use ZipForm for your contracts and take that right into eSign to get those signatures. So eSign, as well as DocuSign, this is something that I like to call distance signing. So this is how you get your contract signed without having to print when you are in a different location from your client. Later, we're going to talk about another application that's for in-person signing, which is different from that. So eSign is distance signing. So you and your client are in different locations. You send them the contract or whatever they need to be signed, and they can sign it without having to print it. So next is Evernote. I taught an Evernote webinar last week or a couple weeks ago. What Evernote is really it can be a complete transaction management system. Really what it is it's a digitized notebook, and you can have as many notebooks as you want. You can have as many notes within those notebooks as you want. So it's really just a way to keep yourself organized and keep all your notes and all your thoughts all in one place. There's people who use it for everything from transaction management to buyer consultation notes to really anything. I mean, you can do audio notes in it. You can put pictures in it. It's really anything that you would normally write down or anything that you would normally print, and you can throw it into Evernote. There are people who are successfully using Evernote for everything. They don't use Dropbox, or they use it very rarely. They don't use, hardly any other tools that you typically hear about. They can manage their entire transaction and their entire real estate business using Evernote alone. So it is a really robust software, and I'm going to mention it a lot as we're going through this, but I also know that there are some people who it just doesn't work for them, or they're not ready to take on the learning curve with something so robust. So I'm going to show you different options. So even though I highly recommend Evernote and I use it myself, I'm also going to show you ways to be paperless and to do all this without using Evernote. But it is a free tool. You just go to evernote.com and sign up for free and download it to your computer, download it to all your devices. The next section, or the next technology tool that you'll need is PDF Expert. So most of the technology that I've been talking about up until this point, you can use on the computer, or you can use on virtually any device. PDF Expert is one that I really believe in that unfortunately is only available for the iPad. So if you have an iPad, get PDF Expert. It's $10 in the App Store, best $10 you'll ever spend, and it's just a one-time fee. If you don't have an iPad, you can use, I think there's an application called Sign My Pad. I think there's an application called iAnnotate. There's other apps that will do similar features, but PDF Expert is the one that I think is really tried and true with a lot of real estate agents, and that I really believe in and think works really well, especially for some of the specific things that I'm going to be talking about. So if you have an iPad, definitely pick yourself up a copy of PDF Expert, and I'll talk about specifically how to use that in a little bit. Okay, so we're going to talk about Paperless Office with listings. Before I get to that, I did have a question about security. That question pretty much always comes up whenever you talk about the cloud, and I have a pretty strong stance on it, I think, but definitely when it comes to security and keeping your client's info in these different apps, definitely go to your broker and get his or her thoughts and feelings on it, because I know they all have different opinions. Personally, as somebody in the tech world, I don't think security is an issue. There are 1,000 other things that you should be worried about before you should be worried about storing a listing contract in Dropbox. The cloud in general is a very secure space. The CIA uses the cloud for all of their stuff. The city of Los Angeles uses the cloud. Your SAAR, your association, uses the cloud. So the cloud in general is very, very secure. And basically that's because Dropbox and Evernote and Google and all these companies are big companies, and they have a lot of very smart people who work for them and make sure that their data and their servers are secure. You don't have time to do that. So really the documents that you have stored on the cloud are typically a lot safer than the documents you have stored on your laptop. And that's because if you've ever connected to an unsecured Wi-Fi network, say in Starbucks, it's easier for somebody to jump on the Starbucks network and steal all of your data that's on all of everyone's computer that's sitting in that cafe than it is for somebody to hack into Dropbox to get that information. And I don't say that to scare you, but just to put it into perspective. So really, if you're worried about security, you're going to want to make sure that your passwords for all of these sites are very secure. Upper and lowercase letters, numbers, symbols, nothing that can be related to you at all, not a pet's name, anniversary, birthday. Don't use any of that stuff. Use something that's not a word. That would be my biggest recommendation, because really, other than the strength of your password, there's really nothing else that you need to worry about. Google's going to do, and Dropbox and Evernote, they're all going to do a lot better job of protecting your data than you could do on your own. So I really don't think security is that big of an issue, but again, please talk to your broker about that. Okay, so for listings, the very first thing when you're going to take a listing is you present at your listing presentation. So I'm going to go over a few paperless things that you can use in your listing presentations. If we were in a classroom, I'd ask everybody to raise their hand if they've ever walked into a listing presentation with a binder of tons of different things. But I'm sure all of you have at some point. So I think listing presentations are one of the easiest and probably one of the best things to make paperless, because it just makes your presentation not only easier for you and better for your clients, it just makes it look better. And I think they're really more effective when they're digital and when they're paperless. There are clients who like to touch and feel things and like to hold that paper and write on that paper. So if you feel that your client is like that, or if you just want to give that option to your client, definitely still print out part of your listing presentation. But I think having a digital presentation can be really powerful. So some of the things that I recommend, Prezi and Haiku Deck are two really great applications for presentations in general. Right now I'm using Prezi for this presentation that you're watching. It's basically like the traditional PowerPoint that you're probably used to. You can use it on your computer. You can also use it on your iPad and on your phone. But basically, instead of taking slide and then slide and then slide, Prezi basically gives you a giant whiteboard, and then you write different things on that whiteboard and then zoom in to the spots that you're trying to highlight. So that's what I'm using right now is Prezi. It's free. You can upgrade to get more space and storage and that sort of thing, but the basic version of it is free. And even when you upgrade, it's pretty low cost. But that's what I'm using right now. You can use it, again, on the computer, on the iPad. You can put video in it, so you can zoom into a video and it'll just start playing for you. You can put images in it. You can put fun animations or icons or anything like that you can put into Prezi. Haiku Deck is more of a slide-based presentation tool. Basically what Haiku Deck is it combines very powerful images with simple text. So and pretty much for any presentation, you'll want to give a visual that people can look at, but really leave a lot of the content up to you, so you can tailor it to you know, how your client likes to be spoken to. And if your client has any questions, it won't interfere with, you know, the things that are on your slide. And you also don't want your client in any presentation, especially in a listing presentation, you don't want your client to have to sit there and read the screen. You want to be able to talk to them and make that personal connection with them. So that's what Haiku Deck is all about, just really simple, short words and phrases with a great, powerful image backdrop. So you can search a whole plethora of images that are available for your use for free that you can drop into there, and then you can set your font style and how big you want your font and where you want it to appear on the screen, and change what you want it to say. So really it's more of a tool to guide you through your presentation. You can also upload your own photos. So if you take a beautiful picture of the front of their property, you can drop that in there as well. Or if you wanted to showcase some of the great photos that you've taken of other people's listings, you can put that in there as well. And then there's, of course, the traditional PowerPoint and Keynote, which are just slide presentations that you can use as well. So the next biggest thing in a listing presentation, other than the actual presentation piece, is going to be your CMA. Obviously, that's what probably the first thing that people ask you when you go to a listing presentation is, what can I get for my property? So the single best resource I have for CMAs is RPR. And I'm sure all of you have heard me talk about RPR at one point or another. It's a really powerful tool and one I really believe in. So I'm going to actually show you a little demo of it. I'm not going to spend very long on it because I'm just going to assume with how many RPR classes I've been teaching lately that the majority of you have been in one of my RPR classes before. So I'm just going to give you a little demo. So this is RPR, the inside of RPR. RPR stands for Realtors Property Resource. It's basically a robust database of tons and tons of information that's available in 1,000 different places, and it takes all that information and puts it into one great looking place where you can get all the information you need. So it has every property in the United States in it, whether it's been on the MLS or not, and no matter what state it's in, you can access all of that information. So I pulled up a property here just to kind of show you what it looks like. This one just sold. It was actually a property that was active on the market when I did my last class, so it just sold not too long ago. But the coolest thing about RPR is this number right here. This is called an RVM, a Realtor's Valuation Model. It basically takes publicly available listing information as well as MLS information to give you a very, very accurate estimate of what this property is worth. So it takes into account a bunch of different things, but the RVM is copyright and trademarked from RPR and is plus or minus 10% of the actual sales price over 90% of the time. So it's the most accurate valuation model that's ever been created. It's really easy to get. Literally all you have to do is type in the address and hit enter, and then you have the RVM there. There's always going to be extenuating circumstances and things that computer models can't know about a property. And that's where you'll have to use your expertise in. And if you take one of my RPR classes or watch the webinar, I'll show you exactly how to do that. But for our purposes today, I wanted to show you RPR because there's this button right at the top here that says Get a Report. If you click on that, you can go through, and there's 5 different types of reports that you can get out of RPR, and they're all customized and have your information on them. And all of these reports come up in PDFs. So if you have an iPad or if you take your laptop to a listing presentation, you can easily pull this up on the screen and scroll through this, email it to your clients when you're done, print it out if you need to for your clients, and then it's done. So over on the left-hand side here, I have a report that I previously ran. So I'm just going to download this real quick just so you can see what it looks like. So this is the report that I ran. Just gives you information about the property, typical CMA stuff, facts about the home, previous listing photos if they're on there. You can even historical ones. You can show how you've refined the value of their property based on different conditions and different home improvements. You can brand it to yourself or to your broker. Some brokerages in the area have branded RPR, so you always have your company logo and everything on there. It shows sales and financing activity for the property, great map overlays, and you can choose which things to include and which things not to include in this report. But again, this is a PDF, so if you're using your iPad to display this or to do your listing presentation, you can easily access this report. And the RPR application in general is very mobile friendly, so you can access the full version of it on your iPad. So if you were with a client and you're sitting in their living room giving your listing presentation on your iPad, and they say something like, oh, but you didn't include that I remodeled the kitchen. You can really quickly, right there in front of them using your iPad, click on Edit, go in here and add the facts that they remodeled the kitchen back in February for $25,000. And you can very, very quickly do that and say, okay, here's your new estimate. Those are things that you can't do when you have it on a piece of paper. This is something that being paperless really helps with, because you can easily do that, go back and rerun the report, and then email that right over to them in a matter of seconds. So this is a really, really great resource for you, and I really encourage you to take advantage of it. I've recorded webinars on RPR on the website on SAARonline.com, but it's completely free. $17 of your dues goes towards it already. So really you paid $17 a year for it. And it's worth thousands a year, I think, in my opinion. It's a great, great resource for you. So please take advantage of that. All right. So moving right along. So that's the basics of working paperlessly with listings, with your listing presentation. Now I'm going to go into some tips for working with buyers. The first is your consultation. When you first sit down with your client and you talk about their wants and their needs and what areas they're looking in, their zip codes, think about how you do that now. Do you bring a notebook with you? Where does that notebook stay at night? If you wake up in the middle of the night and can't remember what the zip code is, how do you access that? All those notes that you have on a client are very important. I recommend Evernote. This is one of the ones that Evernote just makes so much sense for. You can really easily have a notebook that has everything about the transaction relating to that particular client. So you can have notes about your initial consultation. You can take pictures of properties that they like or styles that they like to have that in there as a reference. You can even voice record the entire conversation with your buyers. This is also great for your initial consultation for your sellers when you're at your listing presentation. You can sit there and you can hit record in Evernote and you can have the entire conversation recorded while you're taking notes. So this is something that Evernote just really can't be beat when it comes to consultations and keeping notes about your clients and making sure that you have all of their information. So next with buyers, of course, is the tours. You can do tours in Evernote as well, but Dropbox and PDF Expert really work together very well. So PDF Expert, as I mentioned, is the only thing that I'm talking about today that is only available on the iPad. So PDF Expert is basically a PDF annotation app, but it can do so much more than that. So you can actually voice record right onto a PDF in PDF Expert. You can highlight, you can underline, you can cross out, you can add new text, you can put a timestamp on it. There's a ton that you can do in PDF Expert that I haven't seen in any other apps. And one of the things that's really unique to PDF Expert is its integration with Dropbox. So you can actually, from the MLS, print out your MLS sheet for the listing for the property that you're going to be taking your buyer on tour. Turn it into, and by print it out, I mean turn it into a PDF. And then you can save it right into Dropbox. And then you can go into your iPad and you can open up PDF Expert. And all the files that are in your Dropbox are already in there for you. So all you have to do is open up that listing sheet, and you can walk through the property with your clients and you can make notes about it. You can voice record everything that they're saying about the property if you want to, so you have that later for reference. You can highlight things on it. You can cross out anything that may be incorrect. You can make all those notes on it, and then literally as the second you close your iPad or the second you lock the screen, it's uploaded. That updated version with all your notes on it is updated right back into your Dropbox. So somebody could theoretically go a second later into your Dropbox and open up that listing sheet, and you've got all the notes on there already before you even leave the property. So that alone is a really, really great reason to be using PDF Expert. You can also email that out to your clients straight from the application as well. So if you want to do it right there before you leave the property from your iPad, or if you want to, get home later, compile all the notes, and then send out a packet to your clients with all their notes about all the properties they saw that day, you can do that as well, and they'll have all their notes right on that PDF for them so they can reference it as well. Evernote is another great resource to use tours. Basically exactly what I was talking about with PDF Expert, except instead of putting your MLS listing into Dropbox, you're just going to put the sheets from the listings into Evernote. Evernote will allow you to drop different documents and different Word documents, PDF documents, PowerPoint presentations, virtually any type of file you can drop into Evernote. I'm actually going to show you that. So this is my Evernote that I brought up right now. So over on the left-hand side here, let's see if I can get my drawer here. Okay, so over on the left-hand side, these are all my notebooks. So you can have a notebook for each client. And then within each notebook, you can have as many notes as you want. So this section right here, these are the 2 notes that are inside the notebook that I'm in. So let's say this is my client's notebook. I could have my initial consultation notes, and then I could have a to-do list of the things I needed to do for that transaction. I could even have another note that was showings on such and such date. So showings on July. So this could be showings in July. And what I could do is I could actually just drag and drop my listing from the MLS right into here. So this is a little icon that's showing that there's a PDF kind of embedded in here. So right now it just shows up as an icon, and I can double click it and open that up. But I can also right click on this and uncheck where it says view as attachment, the embed. So if this were a tear sheet from the MLS with all that information on there, I could see it right in here. And then I could really easily just type in notes about they don't like the kitchen, whatever I wanted to in here. And if my clients were okay with me recording their thoughts as we walk through the property, I could be holding my iPad. And this is, of course, this is Evernote on the computer. You can get it on the iPad as well. But I can go in here and I can start voice recording. And so as we're walking through the property, my clients could be talking about, I like this, I don't like this, I don't like that. And they're just talking about all the things that they like, and you can be down here taking notes about different specific things, or you can say at 12 seconds, remember what they said here, and you can take notes on all of these different things as go along, as well as have the tear sheet MLS right there for you. What's also great about Evernote is you can share this with your clients. So I'm going back into the center section here where my note is. I'm just going to right click on it, and if you hit share, and you can hit send by email. So you can really easily share all of your clients' thoughts about every single property that you viewed that day very, very quickly, as well as have all those notes there for yourself so you can always reference them whenever you need to. All right. So that is being paperless, working with your buyers for their consultations and tours. Any questions on any of that so far? So next is managing the transaction. This is the part where people usually get kind of hung up because you're used to having all your contracts printed, and you're used to having them in your manila envelopes that are labeled, and you're used to putting those in bigger envelopes and then putting them in a filing cabinet and putting in that filing cabinet all these other manila envelopes in bigger envelopes in the same filing cabinet, and that's how you're used to doing things. And you're used to having a notebook full of all of your notes that you take with you everywhere, and you're used to having all the listing sheets printed out, and then you put them in the file as well. So really, when it comes to managing the transaction paperlessly, really it's some habit changes. It's taking what you already do and realizing how it's going to make sense for you in a digital world, and just really making that adjustment. So you already manage your transactions, so it's not about doing anything differently or doing anything new. It's just about digitizing your processes. So this is one of those things. It's a very personal thing, but I'm going to give you some places to start. And all of these things that I'm going to talk about right now would be great things for us to talk about on Friday one-on-one, because it's just so much easier when everybody manages those transactions differently, and everybody likes to have different ways to organize. Some people like, for example, I love color coding things. Other people don't care about color coding. Some people like labeling everything. Some people like having different folders for every single different thing. Just think about the differences between different people's desktops, how different from one person's desktop computer to another person's, how many icons they have on their desktop. So it's really a personal thing. So I'm just going to give you some guidance and some tools that you can use and some ways of using technology to help you manage your transaction. But please know that it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. And if you're really looking to get serious and be paperless, which is going to save you time and save your clients time and make your life easier, obviously I really encourage it, and I think it's a very personal thing. So come in and see me on Friday so we can really start getting this implemented for you. Okay, so the first thing you need when you're managing your transaction is some type of file management system that you can access anywhere. So when you're paperless and when you have your business on the cloud, one of the big advantages is you have your entire filing cabinet that right now is probably sitting behind you in your office, and you could definitely never carry it and put it in your car. You have that entire file management system with you at all times. So that alone is powerful. You can go and pull up a client's information from 4 years ago and see all of their information, and get everything that you need to from that, and always have access to your data and always have access to everything you need. So that's step one. I think the most important is to have a file management system that you can access no matter where you are, no matter what device you're on. So obviously Dropbox is going to be your go-to thing for this. As I mentioned earlier, Dropbox is it's exactly that. It's a file management system. It's just like your My Documents folder on your computer, except it lives in the cloud so you can access it no matter where you are. I really encourage you to come up with a good system for using Dropbox. Really think about how you're going to organize your folders. Maybe a little bit more time up front, but it's going to save you time in the long run. Think about how long you've spent perfecting how you file things in your file folder, and the top drawers for this and the bottom drawers for this. So exactly like that. Put some thought into how you're going to file it and use Dropbox for that. Dropbox is also really great if you work in a team. You don't have to give your team members your username and password to Dropbox. They can have their own Dropbox account with their own personal things in it. You can have your own Dropbox account with your own personal things in it, and you can just share the relevant folders and the relevant files and the relevant documents to anything that you're working on together. So next is making sure that you get your contracts signed and you always have the updated versions of your contracts. This is the biggest complaint that I hear from realtors who are working on updating their technology and going paperless. Is, normally you print out a contract and that's the piece of paper that you have. You have that printed contract and you go and you get it signed, and once it's signed, that's still the only contract you have. Now it's the signed version. So in the digital world, a lot of times we can save copies of documents and we can get all these different versions, and one copy's a draft and the other one's a final one, and one's signed by one person but not the other, and the other signed by the other person but not the first one. So a lot of times things like that can happen when you're digital. So you really just need to make sure that you have one place to go for all of your stuff, which would be Dropbox. So a good way to do this, first, for getting your contracts written and always having the updated version, is Mobile Zip Form and MLS Connect. This is going to make your life easier because you can write contracts sitting down with your iPad. You can use Mobile Zip Form to write all those contracts. And using MLS Connect, you can just type in the MLS number for the property that you're putting an offer in on, and it'll pull in all the relevant information into it. So that right there will save you time to get your contract written. And once you have the contract written and you're ready to send it off to get signed, or you're ready to get it signed, there's a couple different things that you can do. First and foremost, Dropbox is your go-to place. Dropbox needs to be where all of your files are stored. So straight from your iPad, you can get your contract all filled out and ready to go. You can save it straight into Dropbox, and then you can open it in PDF Expert, which again is your app on the iPad, and your client can take their finger and they can sign right on your iPad their signature, and it looks just like a wet signature. And then all you have to do is just close your iPad and it's automatically saved back into your Dropbox. So there's not multiple copies in your Dropbox of blank contracts and signed contracts. Everything is all synced when you're using your iPad, using mobile zip forms, using Dropbox, and using PDF Expert. And the other version, or the other way to make sure your contracts are signed and you always have the updated version, is with eSign. So PDF Expert will work for your client to sign with their finger if they're sitting right in front of you. But eSign, again, is for distance signing. So if your client isn't there, you need to make sure that you get the contract off and sent to them. So what I recommend with this is I always delete old versions. That's just kind of the way that I do it. Other people will have, within a folder for a certain transaction, they'll have blank contracts for that transaction, but then they'll also have the signed copies. So it's up to you how you want to do this. But with eSign, it's really easy to send off the contract to get signed, and then as soon as it gets signed, it's emailed to you as an attachment. And all you have to do is take that attachment and you save it into Dropbox and just write over the old copy. So instead of having all these different things in different places, the second you get your signed contract back from eSign after everyone signed it, you wait until everyone signed it and then you hit save, and then you save it right over the copy of the blank one, which again will be in Dropbox. eSign 2, a question that I got earlier. You can use eSign going straight from zip form into eSign, which is what I'm going to be talking about on July 30th. But you can also just upload a PDF document that you have on your computer. It doesn't have to even be a contract. I would encourage you to just make a Word document with a blank line on it, turn it into a PDF, and then put it into eSign just to test it out. So you can't upload documents into eSign. You don't have to go straight from zip forms. So the other thing when it comes to managing your transaction is sharing the documents with the people who need them. I love it when I hear about brokers who have a shared folder with all of their agents, and so they can easily review your contracts whenever they need to. I think that's a great idea. But it also may be necessary if you work in a team. It may be necessary to share some of that information with your transaction coordinator, with your marketing person, or with maybe even your photographer who takes the photos. Maybe they need access to a folder in your Dropbox so they can get the property address. Dropbox as well as Evernote have a lot of great features for sharing, so I really encourage you to explore that and make sure that you're really using those features to the best of your ability. Really, if you're working with, if you get everybody on board that works with you, you can really manage an entire transaction without ever having to send an email. So I think that's a very exciting thing because if you're like most agents I know, you get hundreds and hundreds of emails every single day. So imagine never having to get an email and be able to take care of an entire transaction. All of that's already possible with Dropbox and with Evernote. So really look into the sharing features that all of these different applications have. So one thing that I do want to mention is Cardivi. I don't know if anybody has heard of Cardivi before. They're a newer company, but they're really hitting the real estate world by full force, and I think what they're doing is awesome. I don't have a ton of experience with the application directly, but their application, the Cardivi application, does pretty much everything that I have on the screen very well. So I just feel like it needs to be mentioned. I'm not teaching it because there's more of a cost than some of the things that I'm talking about, but I think that it is important to mention that it is another option. It's a monthly fee, but basically it's an entire transaction management system that's completely paperless. You can add in your escrow officer, your lender, your broker, your client themselves. You can add in all these different people to a transaction and designate exactly which forms in the room or in the in the transaction folder. You can tell exactly which people can access exactly which content. And another thing that I really love about it is it's completely integrated with DocuSign. So again, Cardivi is an extra cost, and then DocuSign isn't free. DocuSign is an extra cost as well, but the two of them work together really well. So getting things signed and making sure you always have the updated version. Cardivi can pretty much replace Dropbox and eSign and Evernote for just transaction management. Okay. So next, after the transaction is complete, it's always important to follow up and maybe even be paperless while you're following up with people. Sticky notes are a pretty bad system. If you're using sticky notes, you need a new system. So I'm going to go over a couple of things that you can use to follow up with your clients. The first is Google Calendar. I live and breathe by my calendar. I always joke that my calendar is completely full and completely coded, and it tells me when to brush my teeth. I have everything on my calendar. Google Calendar is amazing. Whether you have an Android or an iPhone and an iPad, an Android and an iPad, an Android tablet and an iPhone, maybe even not a smartphone, or even if you have a Windows phone. Google works everywhere, and Google Calendar is one of the greatest features I think that they have. So you can set reminders for yourself. You can set repeating reminders. You can set repeating tasks. So if you want to follow up with somebody, every 6 months, you can set that on your calendar. You set it once and forget it. You don't have to actually remember every 6 months. This really can replace those, those day timers that you always used to get for Christmas, where you'd have your entire, and there was a certain format that you had to have your day timer in. Some people like the weekly one and some people like the daily one. Instead of getting your day timer, you can use Google Calendar, and then you fill it out once, you literally set it and forget it. You can set something, and Google's been around for a long time, and they will continue to be around for a long time. So you can literally set something and say, remind me every 2 years on this date, and it'll do it for you, and you never have to worry about it again. I do know agents who are successful just using Google Calendar and Google Contacts, but there's a lot to be said for a good CRM. A CRM is a customer relationship management software. If you're an Armless subscriber, you have access to a basic version of Real Future CRM for free, so you might want to start there. There's also Top Producer. There's also Wise Agent, which is a little more cost-effective, and Wise Agent is a local company as well. And there's also other CRMs that aren't real estate specific that may meet your needs as well. Salesforce has some, Zoho. There's a couple different companies that have CRMs. Basically what this is it handles what I was talking about before with Google Calendar. It handles the setting of reminders to follow up with your clients. It'll remind you depending on how it's structured, a lot of time you can just hit today, and it'll show you all the people you need to call today, all the people you need to email today, any birthdays that are that day. And it's basically just a way to manage your database, manage your sphere of influence and all of those people, and make sure that you're touching them when you need to. Another great free benefit, I love free stuff if you couldn't tell. So another great free benefit is Lowe'sRealtorBenefits.com. And let me show you what that looks like. So this is Lowe'sRealtorBenefits.com. This is a free benefit. You just sign up, and basically what you can do, you have 3 options. I can send 10% off coupons to Lowe's to my clients, absolutely free whenever I want. It's completely unlimited. You can even customize it. So if it's a buyer and they just bought their house and it needs a lot of paint, you can customize it to have painting things in there. It's always branded with your information. It looks like you took the time to put together this nice email and send them off a nice coupon. So that is one option. You can also buy gift cards to Lowe's at 5% off, which is a great savings. I use this all the time for just gifts for anything. And you can send it to yourself too. So if you have a home project you're working on yourself and you want to save some money, it's basically like getting 5% off. You can also send them the Creative Ideas magazine, which is Lowe's magazine. And again, that's customizable as well. So you can send for free. It doesn't cost you anything. You send them out a subscription or an issue to the Creative Ideas magazine. So this is just a way to keep in front of your clients. You could even put this in your Google Calendar or in your CRM as a custom item that every couple of months or so, or every year or so on the anniversary, or every year on the anniversary of their closing, you send them a gift card or send them a coupon or send them some ideas using this free resource. All right. And last but not least, the little monkey there is for MailChimp, which MailChimp is similar to Constant Contact or iContact. MailChimp is an email marketing platform. I think emails are a great way to stay in front of your clients and to market to your database. Anytime I talk about email marketing, I always have to say, please, please, the second you get someone's business card, do not add them to your email marketing newsletter list. I think newsletters are awesome. I think that it's great to, give your clients great, helpful information. I think it's a great way to stay in front of them without being too intrusive. But you need to make sure that you're only sending your email newsletters to people who have specifically asked for it. And you can ask them if they want it. For example, you're sitting at the closing table, everything's done, thank you so much, so great working with you. You follow up with them in a week, make sure everything's going well with their move-in. Oh, by the way, I have this great email newsletter. It's just tips for homeowners, different ways you can spruce up your house, any tax breaks that are coming down. there's any changes in property taxes, I let you know about that. Would you like to receive that? If they say yes, then put them on the email list. If they say no, don't send them anything. I can't tell you, and I'm sure this has happened to everybody, when even if an email has great content in it and it's awesome information, if you open your inbox and there's an email from somebody that you did not ask to get emails from, or an email that you weren't expecting, I just delete it. I'm so mad that I'm getting this email that I didn't sign up for. I delete the email, don't even read it. And a lot of people are like that. So you need to make sure that you're really getting your client's permission, or your future client's permission to send in these emails before you do. It's not only going to help your open rates and your conversion rates, it's going to make your clients a lot happier as well. All right. Okay. So in Evernote, I mentioned that there's a way that you can share a note in Evernote with your clients just by right-clicking and hitting share by email. Your client always sees the most updated version of the note. So what it does is it actually sends them a link to the note, and anytime they click that link, they see the most updated version. So if you want to share a note about all the notes that you took with your buyers as you were walking through on your tour, share it with your buyers, but then just kind of leave that note alone. And if you need to do additional notes about your clients or additional follow-up notes on that are just for yourself that you don't want your clients to see, just create a new note, because your clients will always see the most active version of that note. Another question is, why do you need Dropbox and Evernote? This is actually a pretty common question. Dropbox is really just a file management system. You can't create anything in Dropbox. All you can do is take Word documents, PDFs, things like that, and just drop them right into Dropbox. Evernote is really like a notebook. You can, just like you would with a regular notebook, you can take your pen and you can write in it. You can create content. You can add pictures and videos there for reference. You can drop in documents for reference, but it's really not a file management system. It's really a notebook. It's for all of your notes. I do things like my to-do list in it. I do things like when I have a big project that I'm working on, there's a lot of little things that I need to remember about a project. I put those in there. If it's notes about, you can save articles in there. So it's really more of a creation than it is just storing files. I always recommend, Dropbox is the place where you store all of your files. When it comes to putting files and PDF documents into Evernote, you're really putting them there as reference or as collateral material. So you're typing a note about a property and all the things you need to remember about it, and then you put in a picture of the property for reference. So that's one way to look at it, but you definitely can get by without having Evernote and just using some of the other tools, and you can definitely get by using just Evernote. But most people, I think, enjoy using them for different purposes, so it's good to have both. But I would definitely, when it comes to managing your transaction and all of your files and contracts, that definitely needs to be in Dropbox. Dropbox is your file management system. Don't use Evernote for that unless you're using exclusively Evernote, which most people aren't. An Android version of PDF Expert. There's similar apps, but I'm not familiar with if they do all of the features that PDF Expert does, but some to look into are iAnnotate, so the letter I and then the word annotate, and Sign My Pad. Those are two other apps that do similar features. I'm not sure if they're as good as PDF Expert, but those are some options for Android users. The free CRM is from Armless, from your MLS, and it's called Real Future CRM, and it's actually, once you're signed into Flex, if you go under products and just click on Real Future CRM, you can get a single sign-on right to it. It's a very scaled down version, that's the free version, but it's definitely a good place to start if you haven't used a CRM before and kind of want to get used to it. A little bit more about how to use eSign. This right here is, I'm in eSign right now. It's actually a website, so it's aar.esignonline.net. You have to sign up for it first, but it is free. So what I do here is you just put in a session title. You can put in an email message, and then you'll CC yourself. So you'll put in, this is the final email address that you want the completed signed contract to send to. And then you just click on next. Oops. Sorry, it signed me out. And then you just click on next. And this is where you add your signers. So you're just going to say this is Joe Buyer, and this is his email, and click OK. And then if there's a second, if you need the co-buyer on there, you put in their email address and just click OK. And then hit next. And then this is where you upload the document. So if it comes from zip form, it's going to ask you this. It's going to say who's the buyer, who's the seller. It's going to ask you those questions. If it's a document just uploaded from your computer, which you can just do using this upload, then it's not going to ask you that. And all you do is click next, and then you can manually go through and say, you see how these checkboxes, it's already done that for you. But you can manually go through and say, I need a signature from Joe Buyer right here, or whatever you need to do. So it fills it in for you when it comes from zip form. When it doesn't, you can actually go through and manually do that yourself. And then when you do all that, you just hit next. It lets you preview it. And you just next again. And then you just design your email and you hit finish. And it sends it off as an email with a link in it. Your client clicks on that link, and then they just go through and they just, with their mouse, they just click on all the spots that they personally need to sign. And then once it's all completed, it sends it back to you. Right. Any other questions? Mobile zip form. So zip form doesn't work on your iPad because your iPad doesn't have Adobe Flash. So if you're planning on writing contracts on your iPad without using a computer, you will need mobile zip form. It's $12.95 a year. And hopefully, just speculation because I have no idea, but hopefully when AAR renews their contract with zip form, they'll be able to get zip form mobile included in your dues as well, rather than having to pay extra for zip form mobile. eSign, the free product from AAR, can do everything that DocuSign does. So really, I don't see any reason to use DocuSign if you get eSign for free, unless you're using something like Cardivi that integrates with DocuSign. eSign can pretty much do everything that you need it to, and why pay for something when you can have it for free?